philanthropy has shifted from spontaneous giving to structured, impact-driven approaches. Traditional giving supports immediate needs, while strategic philanthropy focuses on long-term change through planned contributions and measurable outcomes. Impact investing blends financial returns with social benefits, funding sustainable businesses and social enterprises. Unlike donations, these investments aim to generate profit while addressing global challenges. Corporate social responsibility integrates philanthropy into business strategy, with companies supporting environmental, social, and ethical initiatives. Volunteerism allows individuals to contribute beyond money, offering skills-based support, pro bono work, and community engagement. These efforts strengthen organizations and create direct, tangible benefits. Resources like online platforms and philanthropic advisors help individuals align giving with their values. Whether through donations, investments, or time-based efforts, a strategic approach ensures meaningful and lasting contributions to social and environmental causes.
Bruno, you told me that you wouldn't call yourself a philanthropist, but you are familiar with different ways of giving back. Can you walk us through how those experiences ultimately led you to question their limitations and become an advocate for fairer taxation through Millionaires for Humanity?
Gladly, yeah. I am familiar with everything in that segment, basically. You know, the emotional donation, the structural donation, trying to make the family company more ESG focused. What was the impact investment thinking? Over the years, basically, I guess like many people, I've tried to find ways. Oh, where can I help? You know, the needle go in the right direction, or move the needle a bit so that the world is a better place. And I've tried them all, and I put a lot of time in it. But then every time, and at the end, there was a very tangible thing. It led me to thinking something isn't working. And basically, what really brought me to that, and the first thing I want to say as well, is that it hasn't made me cynical about philanthropy, or it hasn't made me cynical about giving. I think it's important, and it's always going to be important. And I also think it's always done for the right reasons, for actually people genuinely want to make the world a better place. But I remember 10 years ago, I think, I started helping out an organization here in Brussels that is working against homelessness. Basically, they were trying to make a building to have homeless people be able to take a shower, which was almost impossible in the city. And I helped out, with another family, with an aunt of mine. We found some money. We asked other family members for more money. It worked. There was a building set up. It's still there. 10 years later, 11 years later, it's still there, and it's working. It's growing, and beyond showers now, they try and put people into housing. It's quite amazing, And I kept in touch, and every year I keep giving a bit, and I love it. But then I had a really crucial moment where I thought this is also extremely demoralizing, because when it started, I think the number of homeless people in Brussels was assessed to be 3,000 or something. Last year, the number of homeless people in Brussels, or people, without homeless people, was assessed to be around 10,000. I can keep giving money to that fantastic organization. Its name is Doucheflux, and I can keep, asking my family to give money, as long as the structural issue of homelessness is not also taken care of. It's do you say it in English? It's a plaster on a wooden leg. It's not going to help the structural issue. For me, it was a learning moment where I was like, okay, philanthropy is amazing and is needed, but it's almost always going to work on symptoms and not enough on causes, always on the consequences and not on the structural aspects. And that ultimately was one of the elements that led me to becoming a member of Minden for Humanity, because I kept going up the waterfall and thinking, okay, what causes this? What causes many things? There was other things I was thinking about, sustainability and others. Is a tax unfairness or tax, things not being taxed the right way and growing inequality because of it. And that is the cause of many, many problems, amongst which that one. So it helped me understand certain limitations of philanthropy. Now, it's not, I strongly think it's not one or the other. They're both one aspect of a solution to, or moving that needle. They're both one element of moving that needle the right way. But I've noticed that not many people were, or especially, since I'm the first member, not many people are, or not many wealthy people are advocating for more tax fairness. Focus on that.
Jacob, you've been sitting at a vantage point where you've seen a lot of different organizations and how people engage with different organizations. Also in your book, The Toolbox, you discuss 9 tools for social impact. How can we use these tools to give more effectively?
A good question and a hard question, and one that is a lifelong quest for me to try to explore and turn that exploration into lasting results. And I'll build on what Bruno was just saying, this sort of contrast, when we saw it in the video, between the sort of traditional approach that was a symptoms-oriented charitable approach and this shift that we've seen over the last approximately 20 years in the direction of strategic philanthropy, really thinking about structures, thinking about lasting impact. But it's also interesting to note that, and that's something I've been deeply a part of and something I really believe in, but we also have seen in the last several years something of a reaction against that. And I think it's because we at times lost a little bit of our humanity and lost a little bit of the common touch and the relationships that often characterized the sort of traditional approach. And so our challenge now, I think, is to figure out how to be rigorous and how to be strategic and impact oriented while recognizing the world's really complicated and relationships are hard and power dynamics are real, and that we've got to figure out how do we maintain our humanity in the process of trying to change the world. And I fully, deeply believe that that's doable, but it does require some real intentionality. One part of that is recognizing that there's no one answer. And I think some in philanthropy have fallen into a trap. And this is true both on the giving and the receiving side of thinking, well, there's one way to solve this problem. The secret is a market-based solution, or the secret is community organizing, or the secret is using behavioral economics or design thinking, or building new institutions, or telling the right story. And what I've come to believe is that it's actually all of those things. And that in a complex world, we can't apply any one framework and think that's going to solve all of our problems. The good news in all this is, though, that we have this whole toolbox, this abundance of ways of thinking that humanity has developed over the course of centuries of how to make the world better. And so we have this opportunity to tap into that wealth of knowledge and experience as we go forward and tackle some really messy problems. And we're not going to get it right the first time, but with the right feedback loops of learning and the right degree of humility balanced with an ambition to actually make some impact, I do think it's possible for philanthropy to be a core part of how humanity tackles some of the great challenges that we're facing.
Sounds like a juggling act, but we can all learn how to juggle.
Yeah.
Jamie, I want to ask you, because as someone who's been organizing since age 13, can you share some of your early experiences, how that shaped your understanding of effective giving, and your comments on what Bruno and Jacob have said so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely got involved in climate organizing through personal experience with the impacts of the climate crisis. I grew up in the Bay Area, California, where the region had been in a drought since before I was born. And I sort of slowly, as the drought intensified while I was in middle school, I sort of started watching like the world I grew up in shrivel up before my eyes. By the time I was in high school, we were experiencing the Paradise wildfires. By the time I was in college, we had historic floods. And so I think I'm part of a generation that has grown up experiencing the climate crisis on a very visceral level. So on one hand, that's terrifying, but on the other, I think it's very hopeful in terms of the future of organizations that are responding to the climate crisis. I think in terms of philanthropy, now is a very important time to invest in climate. There have been times when the field of philanthropy has invested in climate and times when they really have kind of backed off of it a little bit. But right now we're seeing that, the IPCC, the international climate scientists have found that we need to limit global average temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius to avoid the worst impacts of the climate crisis. And global consensus is that between February 2023 and January 2024, it was the first 12-month period in which the global average temperature was 1.5 degrees Celsius above temperature, pre-industrial levels, sorry. And so now is really an important time to invest in climate, especially as the US government is shutting down more federal climate grants. Philanthropic dollars make more of a difference right now. I would also relate this to what Bruno was saying earlier in terms of philanthropy addressing systemic causes of issues rather than just the symptoms. There are a lot of organizations that invest in tech and research around climate, which is fantastic. We definitely need more of that. But the truth is we do have the technology now to solve the climate crisis if we're to stop burning fossil fuels on the level that we are currently. What we lack is the political and social will to pressure governments and corporations to make the necessary changes and bring our climate back from the brink of collapse. And so maybe I have a biased perspective, but I think that investing in grassroots organizations that act to address the climate crisis on the level of policy and social change right now is really vital.
Bruno, you had something to add?
No, I want to say something about what Jacob said. The funny thing is that ever since I started, being a member of Millionaires for Humanity, I started meeting way more people, and also people active in philanthropy, and more than I thought or more than I imagined. Or I wasn't aware of this. I met people who are active in philanthropy, but that is, the way they do it is kind of a slingshot of they make their philanthropic activity a slingshot of policy changes. So they really are. They're like, they try something new, and then they almost go to the state or the government and say, hey, look, we need more. In this case, we need more daycare places in daycares. And you're going to have a big problem, and we figured something out that it might help you. But that was the beginning of that was through philanthropy and giving. So it can really work that actively. And then on what Jamie was just saying, that's kind of something you see a lot with wealthy people as well. They start having their family office where they do a lot of impact investment and they do a lot of philanthropy, and they choose a certain type. And then the funny thing is that when you ask, when you go into a bit more the deeper policy side, it's like, oh wait, we don't talk about politics. My thinking is always like, at a certain point, you can't do that anymore. Like you can have impact investments or donations about, say, more sustainable clothing, but as long as legislation around ultra fast fashion, isn't taken care of, it's not going to have an impact or not enough. So I think we're at a point where we kind of have to get to that level, to that political level, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Jacob, any thoughts there?
I mean, there are countless thoughts. I know we have more topics. I'll just briefly mention this is bringing up a real challenge, I think, for nonprofits and philanthropy in general, which is, I think that Bruno and Jamie are absolutely right that for many of the big issues that we're facing, we have no hope of solving it without engagement in both politics and policy. and that nonprofits and philanthropy can be a key driver of that. The challenge that we're facing is that in this moment of political polarization, we're finding that that's meaning that particular issues get sort of coded with one political party or another. And climate change affects everyone. It doesn't just affect people on the left side of the political spectrum. And so we've got to figure out how to engage with politics in a way that helps to solve the problem, while being aware that sometimes if we're not careful, a overly polarized polity will make it harder for us to get anything done at all. And I should say, I don't know the answer to this. I just know it's a challenge that people are facing throughout the sector and throughout society, and that we collectively got to figure out how to get past that, because these issues affect everyone.
Well said. Let's go to segment 2.